Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members and guests. This is a regular meeting of the West Shore Photography Club, and as most of you know, it's February the 20th, 2023. We have a special presentation tonight by our very own Vice President Joe Farrell, but before we do, just a couple of brief notes. For planning purposes, you might want to add this to your calendar. This will be a neat trip on Saturday, April the 22nd. I think it's Earth Day. We're going to take a trip to Frederick, Maryland, and tour the downtown area. And we have a special tour guide. It's going to be Cam Miller, who's president of the Frederick Camera Click. And she has organized tours of the downtown area, photographic tours for her group. And she volunteered to do that for our group. So we're going to make a whole, pretty much a whole day of it. Meet down there, I think at 9 o'clock. I'll get the specifics, of course, out to you. Meet down there like at 9 o'clock. Photograph, go visit the Del Plain Arts Center, and then meet someplace for lunch, and then so forth and so on. But in any case, Joe's going to talk to you more about the other trips that are upcoming and some trips that we just had. But let me introduce him before. Well, no, let's do the trips first, Joe, and then I'll introduce your presentation. How's that?
We had a trip to the Model Railroad in Mechanicsburg on Saturday. Eve, you were there and were co-host. Can you give us an update on that, please?
Yeah, I think it was very well received. There was 21 of us, and a lot of us, it was first adventure there. First adventure shooting anything like that. I think it was way better and detailed than I could have anticipated. I think that was a lot of the response. It is tight, but I think everybody was accommodating to each other. It was very interesting. And the post I put on Facebook on my page, there were people from Mechanicsburg that never even knew it existed. So it was right around the corner from us, and a very, very neat, unique little place to be. They were very, as we said earlier, they were very welcoming to us and accommodating to us also. It was really nice.
Yeah, thanks. And also, Eve, we want to thank Dan Olson. He brought that opportunity to us and went over and did the initial scouting on it with us. So thank you, Dan. If you're on tonight, thank you very much. So we're going to do another one, and we'll get some details out in the next week or so. And we're going to break it up into some segments and try and take the grouping down from 21 to something more manageable. So we're going to do that again. So, okay. And tomorrow we're going to be going to Middle Creek in the afternoon. You got an email on it today, and we have two options to leave from the Giant Supermarket in Camp Hill area, at Camp Hill, or to meet down at the Locust Point within the Middle Creek. Hopefully, we're going to have a lot of geese. It is problematic that I am doing this to turn off my phone here, because it's going to do something bad. I know right when the middle I'm trying to talk. So there. This morning around 5:30, 5:45, there was a lot of geese on the water. So we'll see. But it's like anything in wildlife, you never know. But it is supposed to be tomorrow at 54 degrees and 25% chance of rain, and it's going to be cloudy. So that's really good. So that's tomorrow. We do have a mud sail coming up in Gordonville. Now this is in Lancaster County. What a mud sail is where the Amish and the Mennonites have basically a giant flea market. They call it a mud sail because it's usually in the springtime where there's a lot of rain and mud, so you need to wear good boots. But it is a fantastic opportunity to do people photography, and the Amish and the Mennonites at this particular venue are receptive to being photographed. And so details were in that. That's going to be a really, really cool event, I'm sure. On March the 18th, Jürgen Lobert, who spoke with us a year ago about night photography, He has a venue in Philadelphia. And so he's offered to conduct for us a night urban photography workshop in Harrisburg. It is a pay one. It's 12 people and it's $50 per person. And the announcement is in the process of being prepared now. And I know, for instance, I'm going to be doing it for sure because he is an outstanding urban photographer and I can learn a lot from that particular session. And $50 for a person of his caliber for 3 hours of night photography is a real bargain. So, and we have coming up, no details yet on it. We're going to be going to the Hershey Auto Museum. We're going to have the State Capitol private tour again. We're working on the details of that now. And Curtis is working on the Kiwanis Lake for the egrets, and there'll be 2 different sessions. Is that right, Curtis? 2 different sessions for that?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, 2 different sessions.
And why 2 different sessions?
We'll have one which would be nest building, and then the other one will go just before the little ones fledge.
Okay, great. Okay, that is, oh, we have a trips committee next week, and wanted to thank everybody that's been passing some ideas to the trip committee. We need those ideas, just like Terry did here this evening. So we really, really appreciate that. So that's it. Dennis?
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Now, most of you know that Joe and I travel a good bit. We've found our way around the world a number of times. But what you may not realize is we have very different styles of photographing during our travels. I, with my wife, tend to follow the standard cruise ship group tour type of thing, and I'm stuck in the tourist traps with the large groups of people. I have always admired the way our very own National Geographic photographer, Joe Farrell, conducts his photo tours. He goes with his photography buddies, gets a guide, and goes in the boonies and stays there for days or weeks, coming back with incredible photos that, honest to goodness, you would think, you know, he was shooting for National Geographic with the spread that he has. We had breakfast the other day and he was showing me the sequence of pictures that he was going to use for the presentation tonight. I'm thoroughly impressed with how he documents his trips and photographs, especially the people in these foreign countries. So that's the essence of his presentation tonight. He's going to show you his process and how he ends up with the outstanding photographs that he has. Joe, it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Dennis. That was very nice. Whoa. So I'm going to share my screen. And can you see my map up there of Southeast Asia?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Tonight, I'm not going to be showing pretty pictures. This is a working session, meaning that we're going to go through images, and then I'm going to step you through how I saw the image, how I approach photographing the image, and some of the techniques that I use to get the images, whether they're maybe technical or whether they may be more interpersonal. I'm going to encourage you to please at any time ask a question. This is going to be more of a conversational kind of a presentation. There's no big slideshows or whatever, but I am going to be using Lightroom so you can see what my settings were for each individual shot, because that will be indicative of how I approach some of the from the photography. I'm going to talk about Vietnam, and right in here. And this is where I was a couple of weeks ago photographing. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time in here because I have some photographs that I think are very instructive. And I didn't delete all of my my bad ones, so to speak, going to. So I have a lot of bad ones, and you're going to see a lot of those too. And then the second part, we'll spend more time here in Myanmar. And if you're in this area, Myanmar, which used to be called Burma, if you're here, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, you basically are all, from all practical purposes, you can't really tell what country you're in. all Southeast Asia, they tend to, they're very, everybody basically looks in many cases the same, and they act the same way, they eat the same kind of foods, that kind of a thing. So you can't really tell where you are. Let me see, there's no techie stuff in this. I'm not going to get anything about Lightroom buttons and dials. I'm not going to do that. I ask you to ask questions. The cameras that I used on this, because I'm just going to say it once here, is the Nikon Z7, which is a mirrorless camera. It's a 45 megapixel camera, and that was used in Vietnam and Cambodia. And in Myanmar, that was used a Nikon D850, which is also a 45 megapixel camera. The lenses I used were are a 24-120 f4, which is sort of my workhorse lens, 70-200 f4, and a 14-30 f4. In some minor cases here, I used the 100-400, but very rarely did I do that. And the 24-120 is my workhorse lens, and they're all f4, mainly because of weight. If I get a 2.8 lens, they're much heavier. So that's that. What I'm going to talk about here on the people side is going to be very applicable to our trip to Gordonville for the mud sail, because it's going to be, I think, for me anyways, it's going to be people photography. And so I'm going to be going through my techniques of how I do this. And I think that's very applicable to the folks down in Gordonville. So what I'm going to do is, like I said, I'm not going to do any pretty pictures, but I'm going to show one that I did a couple weeks ago. And I'm going to show you this one here. This is sort of the finished product. And I probably have 10 different finished products of this image, okay? But I'm going to step through how I got to this point and what my thought process was. I had in my mind something like this. What was in my mind was different colors being vibrant. That's what I had in my mind, and I didn't know how I was going to get to there. So what I did, we were on a tour, much like what Dennis was describing, but I got there like 3 days early, and I hired a guide to take me to the various places that I wanted to go. And so I found that particular guide through Viator. I think, what was it called? Yeah, Viator, Viator.com. And that's part of, I forget what company, but that's Viator. And the other one is called toursbylocals.com. And I found a guy who said he was a photography guide. And of course, you can't believe that, because your expectation for a photography guide and his may be totally different. So what I did was I got into extensive dialogue with the guy. We had a Zoom meeting, and he took his motor scooter and he drove around to the various places, taking videos of it and saying, "Hey, Joe, is this the right thing?" I said, "Oh, this is perfect. You know, you got it. You got it nailed, you know," and very reasonably priced. I had him for a day from 3 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock in the evening. And I think it was like $250 or something like that. And he provided the transportation and the lunch, and took me to the various spots. So I did use a guide, and that really is important to have a guide. Otherwise, you're just going to be flailing around, not knowing where to go. And you're going to look at the tourist brochures, and they're going to have the mausoleum that you can go photograph, and you're going to do that at noontime, and it's harsh sunlight. You know, you just really need to have a guide to help you go through the whole process, and it's very, very helpful. So, and this was, I kind of had this kind of a thought in my mind, but not from this angle. So what I did was, we went to a location, which, and you can see up here what my settings are, okay? The shutter speed, the f-stop, the ISO, what lens I used, and how many millimeters I was at, okay? So we were going to a place that he knew that we probably could get in and photograph the soy containers here. This is what they're doing. They're making soy sauce in these things. So they have the lid on them, and then they have to stir them up a couple times a day, 2 times a day. And and it can be really colorful. So this is the first place. And I wasn't clicking on this one. And the lady was very, very nice. And she had the stuff you put in to make soy sauce, and I have no clue what it is. But she was being very accommodating, and she was taking this and she was trying to give it some motion. So that's what she was trying to do. And she's doing a good job of it. But I recognized very quickly that I did not want to have a shutter speed of 350 because I wanted to show motion. And so I reduced my shutter speed down to 1/20th of a second to give me some motion. But before I get to that, I've actually missed a major point. The major point when I look at these kind of scenes, any of them that I approach, I say to myself, Joe, what is appealing to you? Why are you taking this picture? A lot of times we've probably been out in the woods and you see this beautiful mountain range and you say, oh, that's so pretty. I'm going to go take a picture of it. And you do. But if you can't say to yourself, well, why in the heck am I taking a picture of that mountain range? What appeals to me? What drew me to it? Because if you can't answer that question, you can't really compose the shot to drive home the point of what you're trying to get at. So to me, it's really important, and you'll see as we go through this, that I will always be looking at trying to find out what is it that appealed to me and how can I best then do a composition that'll support that. On this particular one here, I wanted to show motion, okay? And because she's moving that, so I slowed down my shutter speed. Now you have to really hold your camera tight. And this is a 45 megapixel camera, full frame. So those kind of cameras, believe it or not, are harder to use than a 24 megapixel because any little movement of your camera will give you an motion blur. So you have to be rock solid when you use that particular camera. And that's a subject for another discussion at another day, why a 45 megapixel camera would be harder to shoot with than a 24 as an example, okay? But so I'm going through here and I typically will have my camera set to a high frame rate. When I say a high frame rate, maybe 5 frames a second. And I will generally, when I take a shot, I'll take 3 shots, not 1, but I'll take 3. And I'll go bang, 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 bang. Because over the years, I've learned that the middle shot is almost always sharper than the first or the last shot. Because when I push the shutter down, I have a motion on the first one. The second one, my finger's already on the shutter and I'm just squeezing it and I don't have that jarring kind of emotion. So I will typically take 3. I take a lot of shots for that. So I'm working on this thing and it's not working for me. I don't get any color. I'm not liking it. So I go over and I talk to her via the guy. He speaks Vietnamese in this particular case. And so I asked him can we move? And we did. So we moved over here and it's still not doing it. I don't have any color in here. And color, the light's beautiful, you can see. There's no harsh shadows. It's overcast skies. I love it, but I don't have any color. So I keep walking around, trying different angles. It just isn't clicking with me. And I got to this one, I said, now I get these colors that I was hoping for and some of this, but I don't have any mechanism to get and shoot down so I can get it. There was no second floor that was available to me. And so I'm getting flat shots like this, so to speak. And it just wasn't working for me. I'm getting the color, but I'm not getting the full spectrum of what I want, what I was hoping for. So I just took some more shots. She did this for me, showed me what that stuff looks like, making soy sauce. So we decided to move on to another location. And on the way out, there was that and that. And she took another, she said, I can take another. She said, she looked at me like, take some more shots. And I did, because I didn't want to disappoint her. I didn't want to just sort of run off on her. So, and I thanked her very much. So Mike, our guide, said, I think I know another place we can go to. He says, and they do have a 2nd and 3rd floor. He says, it's a relatively newer house. And these are, by the way, are in people's backyards in their houses. Okay, this is not like a factory kind of a thing. And so we went to the next place And we went to the second floor, and regretfully, I don't have any of the pictures on the ground floor where I first started, because I actually did delete those. So when I'm on the second floor, or excuse me, the third floor on this one, okay? So this is kind of what I was looking for. So the first thing I noticed is that none of these containers were open, just these two, just one here. And I needed these to be open and to have it stirred to get the color into it. I needed that. And so I said to myself, what is it on this is drawing me to the scene? Is it her? Well, partially, but not really. What really is drawing me to the scene is the color. And I want to get the color and the vibrance of the colors. And that's what I want. And so she's looking up at me like, is this okay? Am I stirring it well enough, or whatever she said? And I, gave her thumbs up. Yeah, that's perfect. So she's going around and she's stirring them. And I said, well, excuse me, we asked her to take the lids off. Okay. And so she did that. She took the lids off right here, and she put them all right in this area here. So this gives us a lot of nice round spots. Okay. So she did that, and now she's stirring the pots. And of course, I'm taking pictures, I'm standing there waiting, and I just keep doing this. And now look how what she stirs that pot, that yellow comes up because that boils up to the top, so to speak. They do this twice a day. So she's stirring these pots, and then we said, well, maybe if you moved over to a spot, and then with this got in the way. He says, no, that's not going to work. Okay. So we did a couple of them like that. Then I zoomed out here. I'm at 58 millimeters. And so I moved out. So then we had her turn this way, the way she's facing now, so that we could see what we can get. And she's stirring the pots. She's coming down around here now, stirring the pots. And Mike asked her, my guide asked her to put the hat on, and she did. And that was really, really a critical thing to do. And I didn't think of that because I don't think of that. And so she put that on. So we're getting closer now to what we wanted. We have all of these now. She's got colorful pots inside. This one she didn't open because she knew it wasn't going to be colorful. She just bypassed that one. And I got rid of the ones over here. So now I have this. So we're working on it, So I'm taking a wider angle now, and I'm moving it out. I'm just working this because I really don't, if I'm there and I traveled all that distance, and I like the scene, I'm going to photograph the heck out of it so that I can crop it if I want to. And that's what I'm doing here. Okay. And this is the shot that I ended up with. Okay. You can see I saturated it somewhat. And but that is the general process that I go through. Again, any questions you have, blurt them out. But this is one shot I wanted to show you in particular. So,
Joe,
yes.
I have a question. I have a question for you. To what extent during this process do you or do you not think of what you're going to do post-processing, say in Lightroom? Is that part of this equation, or is it later in the viewing of these, or how do you view, if at all, post-processing when you're doing this?
I have that. Actually, almost every one of the images that I'm going to show you, I kind of know what I'm going to do before I take it. I can just visualize what I'm going to do. For instance, on this one here, this is what I'm looking at in the back of the camera, but I know that's not the way I'm going to process that in. I know it's not going to look like that. I knew I could get the color and pull it out, and I knew it was going to look something like that. And you'll see as I go through here that that's foremost. That's one of the things in my mind. First of all, why am I taking the picture? Secondly, make a composition that supports that. And then thirdly, in my head, how I'm going to post-process it. And those three things go together, and they go very quickly, frankly. The more experience you have doing this, the quicker it is, and frankly, the more fun it is.
Yeah, Joe, question?
Mm-hmm.
What were the key elements when you saw that scene that made you think, hey, there's a picture there, I've got to work to get it?
I saw this right here. Okay, this wasn't dirt. It had some color to it. That was really, really cool to me. And I knew these pots were totally different than the pots in the other lady's port in her backyard. You see, these have some color in them, and all of hers were just like this. They were just all monolithic. They didn't have color to it. I said, whoa, the color there is just special for that. So that's, did I answer your question?
Yeah, I assume all the shapes were a part of it too.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
And the other one-
and
yes.
you've got the woman there as an element, a compositional element working the
Right.
scene.
Yeah. She anchors the whole image, you know?
Joe, how long were you there at that scene, that shot? How
That
much-
went probably 45 minutes.
Oh, okay, it's not long.
Yeah, it was a wow, because it was really only one shot that I was doing. Okay, now
Yeah.
on the way in and on the way out, I took a picture of the grandparents and the kids and all that kind of stuff. I'm not putting that in here because I don't have them, because I got rid of them. And doing this kind of a thing, well, I'll talk about that later. So.
Yeah, why did you place the woman in the scene where you did?
Oh, because I didn't want her dead center for sure. Okay, I wanted her off center, and she could have been anywhere, but I wanted her right there. And if she wouldn't have been in that spot, I would have then either asked her to move, or I didn't. I would, in this case, I didn't have to do that. But if I had enough of pieces, I could have just moved myself and then got her in the position I want. I definitely didn't want to have her in the dead center. And also I put her here because she's implicitly looking this way. Okay. She's looking down. She's not looking this way. If she was looking this way or this way, I would have had her turned around. Okay. And look this way. Okay.
Yeah, do you think in terms of the rule of thirds? I mean, the suggestion of thirds?
Yeah, I do. I don't really think of that, but yeah, this is it right here. Okay, she's right in that rule, right in that spot, that sweet spot.
And Joe, were you concerned at all about the pattern in her blouse? And did you think then in post-production, you might change that to a solid color, or would that throw everything off?
No, I didn't have the guts to ask her to change her top, but I didn't, that wasn't bothering me. I was just happy to be in this situation.
I think it blends well. Yeah, I think it's good. I just wondering. Mhm.
Yeah, no, I didn't really give any thought to that. No, she has some kind of a wild, candy apple red or something like that. She has sort of a muted color, and that matches the scene. So.
Joe, this is Dave again. This is absolutely one of my favorite photographs that you've taken, and you've just taken so many tremendous ones. Here's my question, especially since you just mentioned you spent quite a while, or what many of us would consider a while to do this. My question is, what's in it for her? You're obviously confident, and you have a rapport, and your vision somewhat translates to her. But for some of us, I think we would feel, or I would feel, like I'm intruding somehow, especially in a foreign culture. And I think I would take maybe a couple of shots and then feel like I'm imposing. That wasn't the case here. So again, why do you think she spent that much time with you, other than your excellent skills and in managing this?
Well, thank you, David. I think if you're going to see, as I go through some of the other shots where I'm out into remote villages, this obviously is not remote because you see a hard floor. Okay. But when you get into the remote villages, it's really, for them, it's an honor to be photographed. Think of what they're going to say to somebody now. They're going to say, do you know that this American guy was photographing me, and we spent 45 minutes or so, and he was doing that? I don't know if he's going to put it in the magazine or not. I don't know. But and then you go into a little village and you're photographing those folks, and they're just so happy to be photographed. I mean, just thrilled with it. I remember once we were in Cuba, And I was with Ellery. Ellery is a Jewish guy, and there's a Catholic church, and it's on a Saturday. And there's a lot of people going in and out. And I says, well, I think you're allowed in. I don't know. I'm just kidding now, of course. And so we go in, and there's all these people in here, and this big old baptismal thing. Okay. And so we're getting in there, we're taking our shots, we're working our way up. So we end up in the little cubicle that they have, where they're actually baptizing, putting the water over the baby's head. And we're in there, and we're so darn close, excuse me, that I almost needed a macro lens. So, we took our shots and stuff, and I really wanted, I didn't feel comfortable with that. So we come out, and then there's an altar. And then someone comes over and they tug my arm and wanted to know if I take the picture. And this is non-verbally. So we did. So then the other people came out and they wanted their picture taken. So we did. They lined up. We were there for about 45 minutes photographing families. This was so important to them. And they felt so good about it. And then I would take a shot and then show them the image. And then Ellery would take a shot and show them the image. And then we got invited to one of their christening kind of things that they had. So we went over there and we did that. We didn't take any pictures though. That was more of a fun thing. That was more of a fun thing. So.
Hey, Joe. Joe, I've
Yes.
got a follow-up question.
We're
Pardon me,
getting,
George, do you have two devices online at the same time? We're getting a terrible echo.
All right,
Yeah, it sometimes happens if you're running two devices at the same time, if you can turn one off
okay.
or at least mute one, getting a feedback loop.
George, until you get that resolved, can we hold that question until we can?
Yeah, I'm sorry, George, I muted you there.
Okay,
There we go. Okay.
I'm gonna move on to this here.
Oh, well, Joe, let me, that does beg a question, Dave's question.
Yes.
Do you ever pay any of these people? You paid the guide, should you compensate the model in some degree?
I think one time I paid, in all my years, I paid someone, and it was a little boy in India who had a goat and followed me around for all day long, tugging up my shirt sleeve, pointing out some obscure thing, and he was cute as a button. And that was the only time I ever paid anybody. And I gave him like a lot of money. For him, it was like a fortune. It was like $10, okay?
Ooh.
And it was like a huge amount of money for him, absolutely huge. And when I gave that money to him, his eyes became saucers. That was the only time I've ever done. I've never, ever, I don't think I've ever paid anybody. I'm sure I didn't. I haven't paid because I will not, if they look for money, then I won't photograph them.
Okay, thanks. I'm sure some people were wondering that.
Yeah.
Hey,
Sure.
Joe,
Yeah,
can you hear this better now?
I can't. Oh,
Sounds
that's,
good, George, yes.
that's perfect, George.
The only question I was going to ask was this. All these people whose pictures you took, do they ever expect to get a copy? Do they ever expect to get a print from you? And if so, and how do you do? Do you offer them to send a print? Do you get their address? What do you do?
If they want, and almost nobody ever asked me for that, by the way, okay? Very rarely does it happen. And if they
So what
do,
are they thinking?
if they
So
do,
what are they thinking?
if they do, I hand them my business card. And if I can't
Yeah.
speak the language, I hand them the business card, and that's about it, okay? And then my policy is, my Joe Farrell policy is, they have to request it from me. I don't take their name and phone number and email address and then put the onus on me to generate an image and then send it to them electronically, because a lot of the places that I go to, there's no such thing as an internet connection. So that's how I do. I just have business cards in my briefcase, in my camera bag, and I just hand them a business card and say, let me know if they speak English. I would say, just tell me that you're the lady in the soy pots,
Yeah, I use a similar approach and I have had the same experience. I've handed out many business cards and very rarely does anyone ever contact me. In fact, if you remember, we photographed at the Shippensburg Fair a couple of years ago. I spent a whole day there, and I talked with people, took lots of great pictures, and handed out a ton of business cards. Not one person contacted me for a print or even a digital copy. Okay, thanks, Joe.
Okay. It's 7:36 and I got through one image so far. Okay. So these questions are great. Okay. This is exactly what I was hoping for. So we, at 3 o'clock in the morning or 3:30, we go to this market. This is a wholesale market. It's not for consumers. This is for restaurant owners or street vendors or hotels to come and buy their groceries, their produce and meats, because in these cultures, you don't go to the supermarket and buy stuff for a week. Here you buy good. A lot of times you'll go to the local store and you'll get your stuff twice a day, maybe in midday, and at the end of the day. The midday would be for lunch, and then you buy your stuff for dinner, and then you do the same thing every single day. So that's the culture that we're in. So they have this market every day, and people come and buy it to put into their stand that they may have or whatever. So this is absolute chaos. I mean, absolute chaos. It's the craziest thing. So I get there and I say, oh my gosh, what am I going to do here? Okay, well, I got to photograph chaos. How am I going to photograph chaos? So one of them right in here, so these guys right in here, this is the main entrance going in and out, okay? And there's a lot of motorcycles. So I figured, okay, I want to show chaos. If I had this image frozen in my head, I said, I have to pan it. I got to pan all of these because I want to show motion, and I want to show these people. This is my, why am I taking it? I want to see these people leaving and in a sort of in a chaotic scene like this. That is what I want to do, is I want to see them in a chaotic scene, and I want to show the motion, because there's scooters go in front of you, and I have my 24 to 120 on, and practically I had to take the lens hood off because I thought they were going to run it over, knock it. That's how close you are. So that's what I did, and I looked at this and I said that the reason I'm taking these pictures, because I want to get these pictures of this guy pushing that sucker, and this man or woman, whatever that is pulling them, and the shape of that person. This is one of the reasons why I took it. And I got stuff in here. This is okay. This is street photography kind of thing. Okay. So you go inside, and this is kind of what you see. Okay. And this is throughout the whole place, and have fans on the wall and stuff like that. So I just walking through it, and you can see I changed my lenses of 14 to 30 because I was back in here. I needed to use a wide angle lens. So I was having my wide angle lens on at that point. So I come into what I consider to be my first scene. And immediately I'm drawn to this lady right here, okay? Because all these people around are there's lots of activity. But this is what I'm drawn to. So I say, okay, now I have to isolate that lady, because you wouldn't know what I'm taking a picture of if I just took that picture. You'd say, oh, it's a chaotic scene. You got all that stuff. Well, but I have what I consider to be my reason is this lady here. So I have to figure out a way to do it. So what I did was I figured I'm going to do zooming as I'm photographing. Okay. So I have my camera set to 1/15 of a second, and I'm zooming in zooming out, zooming in to get a look that I want, where she is in the center, and this chaotic scene around her is what I'm looking for. Okay. And that's what I did. And when I walked in there, I knew I had to do something. And I could have zoomed into her face and cropped it right in here. I could have done that. And that would have been a very nice picture also. But I wanted to get the chaos in it. And that's what I got here. Okay.
That is one of the most effective uses of that technique I've ever seen. That zoom during exposure.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Oh, thanks. Okay.
Joe, I have a technical question.
Okay.
I also shoot with a D850, and my keeper rate is not what I would like it to be. And I suspect that it's shutter speed. And you started off this conversation this evening talking about high shutter speed and camera movement. But yet I see you're using 1/60th of a second, even 1/6 of a second here, and your subject is sharp. How are you controlling the camera movement, or am I going the wrong direction with my thought process?
Well, let me show you this. She's really not sharp. Okay, just so you know. Okay, she's not really sharp, and and I could never get her to be sharp at 1/6 of a second. If I had a tripod, I could do that. I would never even dream of a tripod in here. If I had a tripod, I could get her sharp, but I sacrifice it. When I
How about
mentioned at the
image
beginning,
stabilization.
yeah, well, I have that, I have the 5-stop image stabilization and all the fancy stuff in there to do that. But,
Okay.
that's 1/6 of a second is pretty slow. Okay. But I had to, as you saw there, I had to do different focal lengths to get the look I was looking, to get the movement on the sides. Okay. So that was important, more than just one shot. Dick, I was referring to a 45 megapixel camera. High megapixel cameras are harder to get a sharp image than like a 26, 25, 24 megapixel camera. That has been my experience. When I first went with a 45 megapixel camera, I had a very hard time for about 6 months to getting sharp pictures because I was always shooting at 1/25th of a second. I had to move myself up eventually to like 1/250th of a second to get the same degree of a sharpness. And there's lots of reasons for that. And you can, but I won't go into it, but that's why.
As you're walking around in the daylight, let's say cloudy day, hand holding a camera, what shutter speed are you typically trying to use?
I could, I'd say maybe 1/250th of a second or something like that. And it depends on
Thank you.
and it depends on the focal length. If I'm using a 100 to 400, I'm going to be a much higher than that. And if I'm at a 14 to 30 at 14 millimeters, I can be much lower than that. Okay.
Thank you,
Joe,
Jerry.
Joe, I have a question.
Yes.
As you were taking these zoom shots, were you taking them individually as you're moving the focal length, or are you bursting while you're doing that?
I'm bursting. I'm taking and going bang, 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 bang. And as I'm doing bang, 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 I am rotating my zoom lens to be able to zoom in or to zoom out.
Wow, that takes some coordination.
Well, yeah, it does. You know, the blue tape sometimes you use, sometimes I'll tape that and make a little handle on them if I'm doing a whole bunch of them, and then I'll just use that little handle to move. It's a little bit easier than moving the ring, but yeah, I did that on this shot here too. Okay, see here, I'm doing different, see how the shutter speed here is 1/3 of a second. I took other shots. There's other ones before this where I wasn't getting enough zooming effect look. And so I did 1/3 of a second and to get to where I wanted to be. Okay.
Thanks,
That's-
Joe. They're great shots.
And that's how I get my subject isolation on that. Now, this is one technique that I really love to do. And that is I find someone that's interesting to me like this. And there's some obstacles. There's some obstacles. Some people call them obstacles. Some people would call them framing. I consider these to be framing elements. Okay. And I want to get a picture of her. She's not looking at me. And I said, okay, that's it. I got that. I want to do it, but got to get rid of this. What am I going to do? And I'm going to come in and zoom in. And I think I zoomed in. No, I didn't. I must have walked closer on this one. Okay. But I have her framed. And that's what I like. I like her being in that frame. So here's another one. And I looked, when I came on this scene, immediately what I looked at was I saw these two people. They're the vendors, if you would. And they're both good looking people. And I thought I can make something out of this because all these, it was so chaotic around there. Okay. With all these people, I said, this is my subject. So what am I going to do, Joe? How am I going to get there? Okay, so first thing I did was I probably zoomed in. What was it? No, I wasn't. Oh, I cropped it somewhere. One of the, I have a gazillion of these shots, so I probably cropped it right there. And this one, I have her in focus. He's out of focus, and I did that purposely. Most of these shots are at f4 because I usually have one person that I really wanted to be sharp, and everything else is I can have them blurry. Okay, so I got a shot of her. Then let me just close this. No, I didn't mean to. Okay, so then I saw him, and I moved around, and I got him, and I got this hat in it. I wanted that hat in there, so I got that in there with him, and that's what I wanted to photograph. Okay, you now know what my subject is. There's no question about that. He's my subject. That's my reason I'm taking the shot. Okay, I come back. There's these two people. I'm standing back. I don't barge in. I just stand back until I can see her. And now she's flanked with these two guys. Okay, love it. I like it. Okay. This here, I love this shot because now she has a smile on her face. She's busy. I can see part of her, and I'm shooting through, and I love that kind of a thing. And here I have this guy. Now, and her. These are the two that I picked, this and this one. But let me mention to you, when I'm out in I'm in a remote area, I'll take my camera and I'll show the people the image. Like for instance, if I'm in Africa and people haven't seen too much of the technology, or if I'm in a rural part of Tibet or something like that, I'll take my camera and I'll show them the image. Okay. On these, I never do that. I never, ever do that unless they ask to see it. I just don't do it. It'd be very awkward, obviously, to do that. When we go down to Gordonville, you're not going to do that either. It doesn't work. And sometimes if you go into a Western culture, you can insult people by doing that because you're treating them like you're dumbing them down type of thing. So I don't do that. Okay. So one of the things I love to do is stuff like this, because I know he's like, these are dumplings or something, and this is hot oil, and I know what's going to happen. It's going to get really, going to get a lot of smoke or out of that. So I'm here, and he's putting them in. You can see there, I got some smoke. But the smoke is not showing because the light is coming from the side over here. I need to have the light coming from behind it so that it will light that smoke or that steam. And that's what I want. So I moved over, and now here, this guy here, I know I'm going to cut him out. I know I'm going to crop it. Okay. So I didn't waste I'm at 24 millimeters and I'm at 24 to 120. I could have zoomed in, but I didn't. And so I'm going to crop him out later. But what I did was I kept working on him. Now I don't got the smoke right. I don't have the steam right. I'm getting close now. I got the steam in there. And now I got the steam where I wanted it to be. And I still have it backlit so I can see it. So I jumped up my shutter speed to 1/80th of a second, because if you don't have a fast enough shutter speed here, it'll become just like a fog. Whereas you don't have any definition. You'll see that later in some other images. So I jumped up my shutter speed a little bit. So this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to get him with the smoke. And this is one shot. I think that's a shot that I wanted right here because he has a smile on his face. He's really happy. So now here is one. I looked at this and I said, okay, Farrell, why are you going to take this picture? And I couldn't figure it out. So then I said, okay, well, maybe I can get some movement in in here to show that, and that can be interesting. But you know what? These guys have absolutely zero character to me. None of them smile. None of them, they didn't try and chase me away, nothing at all. And this I consider to be an epic fail because I'm just not getting what I'm looking for. So I walk away from it. Come to this lady, and she's poking something in there, some rice or something she's going to put in the bowl, and I know it's hot. And so she's pulling it out, and I can see some steam. Oh, I said, oh, this is what I like. And I have And there, look at that. I got that steam. And that's what I was looking for. Okay. But look at that horrible background. That is just horrid. Okay. Now, whole place is so chaotic. What I could do is take another picture and take the background and remove it. You would have no clue that I did that because you don't know, because everything else is so crazy in there. You can't tell that. So I just took 2 shots and then I did a layer mask in Photoshop and I replaced the background, but I kept the smoke. And I knew that when I took that shot, I knew that's what I was going to have to do. So I turned around and I got some stuff that was close to her there that was in a dark background, and I did that. And that's another shot. Okay. So I'm leaving that market now. And I was in that market for about 2.5 hours. Okay. And so I go
Comment,
in
Joe?
2.5
Yeah.
hours.
I
2.5
just wanted to note your ISO on that one.
12,800.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I tell you what, that doesn't bother me in the least. You know, that doesn't bother me. So
Do
I'm-
you use Topaz denoise or any of those programs to mitigate some of that?
and on this one here, I definitely would. Okay, I don't think I did. As a matter of fact, I'm almost sure I didn't. No, I guess I did do it. Yes, I can tell that. Yes, I will on a high ISO like this. If it's at, if it's at 6400, I probably won't do any noise reduction. Okay, other than what I can do in Lightroom. So,
Yeah.
so here, this is in a little village, and these kids, they're going to do something. I don't know what they're going to do. Okay, so I'm waiting, and then she sees me, and then they're talking to her friends. So now they must have had a meeting and decided that they're going to do something. Okay, so they all lined up, and they're starting to come through. Okay, and actually these are out. I think these are out of order. I think this was the first one, and so without that kid looking over here, I didn't like the shot. But when he put his head over there, I took the shot. I mean, this is a snapshot to me. It's not really something special, but I took the shots. But then this is their streets. This is a street here. You'll have motor scooters on here. You'll have people with horses, with carts, and people in this spot. So this little girl and this little boy, they were following me, and so they were so happy, as you can see. And I got a point where she was really going bonkers, and I got her, and that's what I wanted to do. Okay. And I said to myself, obviously those kids are the subject matter, and all this stuff up here didn't have any meaning. So either I zoomed in or I cropped it. I'm not sure. I cropped it. And I did use photo AI on that. Okay. And to get her skin, the noise out of it, because it was 25,600. Okay. ISO 25,600. Isn't that pretty cool? You could actually do that today. So that's what I did. Okay.
Did you brighten the faces?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah, I did that. And I have to be real careful about how I do that so that the light is in this particular shot, I didn't do a good job because I don't have any shafts of light coming down. Okay. That's naturally doing that. Sometimes I'll add a shaft of light so it doesn't look like I lit their faces, just like you ask. Okay. I was just testing here to see if I needed to do focus stacking in here, because I was hoping that somebody in a red jacket would come through. So I did a shot here and I did a shot here, and I found out that if I do F11, I can get the whole thing in without having to do focus stacking. But I was practicing on that just to see if I could do it, because I was knowing that someone was going to come through there. Oops. And he didn't. Later on, I have one that has him coming. There was a guy in a red jacket coming through there. So my guide knew this particular house and introduced the lady to me. And of course, we couldn't speak. And he asked her if she would stand there and pose. And so she's posing for me. And I feel obligated to take the pictures, but I don't like that kind of a pose picture as much as I like and a photograph like this, which is the one that you got away from that. And now I got her true personality. She looked like she's the boss lady and runs the show. And she got that toothpick sticking out of her. And that's what I want. Okay. But then I also took one of these too, because she wanted to see the picture on the back of the camera, because I didn't show her that one. I wanted to show her that one. Okay. And so now here we're going into a place where they're making rice paper. And I'll explain that in a minute. You can see my ISO is 51,200. And why I was at 1/350th of a second, I got to tell you, at this point, I don't remember why in F11. That's why my ISO was so high. This was sort of a goof on my part. But okay, and you can see all the noise in here, but I knew that noise could be mitigated pretty well. So I'm taking this and I'm going to photograph her, and I want to spend time on this, and I'm trying different things, and I see the steam coming up, and I can see that there's light back in here. So I need to work on this. This is what's going to be driving the image, is this light right here. And she's going to be my subject, but that's going to drive it. So I'm coming in a little bit closer, coming in closer. Nah, that doesn't work. That's too harsh right in here. I got too much of a specular highlight blown out. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. Nah. So now I'm getting down lower, and I'm coming in closer to the machine. So I'm hiding that blown out area. So it's getting better. And I changed my f-stop down to 5.6, so I have a little bit more light, so I don't go 12,800. So now I'm photographing, and I keep working on it. And now I'm really low. I'm laying on the ground. Okay. And I'm trying to get this thing here right like that. That is what I wanted to do. Okay. I wanted to have that be bright with this in the background and have that feeding it into the machine that you did. And this is blurry here because I'm at 5.6. Okay. But she is sharp. She's real nice and sharp. Okay. So that's what I wanted to do. And that's how I worked that particular scene. And this is how I then took another image and I processed it and I darkened the things down that I wanted. Okay. So continuing on, little boy, shot of him. So that's that. Here's a guy in the red. I was in my focus stacking. He worked for the water company and he was checking to see if there was a water leak. And what really, I have lots of shots of him. You see with that foot here, it's raised up, and I really, really wanted that. I always like to have a foot up rather than 2 feet on the ground if they're moving. I want to have at least one foot in the air if I can get that. Okay. Okay.
Gesture, huh, Joe?
Yeah, that is.
Go for gesture.
Yeah, it really is important. So, we all know that the key component of photography is light. And this is to show you how photography with bad light generates bad pictures. But when you get good light, it generates good pictures. So light is critical. And I often will look at the scene and see the light and then try and find a photograph that can fit that light. Now, this is your typical tourist shot where I have right here the guy in the green shoes, and this guy's doing basket weaving, and I got a tree growing out of his head. Okay, so I'm doing this, and I now replace the background on him. Okay, there was no. I liked the intensity of his face on this shot here. He's really struggling, is trying to get a good shot. And I just replaced the background on it. Okay. I'm here, and this lady is, let me see here. I am going to switch to Myanmar. Okay. I'm going to run out of time. So I'm going to open recent Myanmar. While that's cooking here, these are all, are you there? Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, your screen says plan for the next phase of work.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, there. Okay, good. And let me,
While you're doing that, Joe, maybe comment about what you know about the different cultures and how they react to photographing. I mean, you had subjects that are super cooperative. They want to have their pictures taken. Are there places where you travel that that's not the case?
absolutely. That's why I stick with Asian cultures, because they are so not one person here in my whole, on both in Myanmar and in Vietnam and Cambodia, not one person did not want their picture taken and did the stop sign. Not one of them did that. Okay.
Amazing.
If I went to Italy, France, Germany, any Western culture, I would be begging to take some pictures like this. It just does not work. Okay. But in these countries here, all of these countries here, very, very agreeable. You move down into Singapore, you're into a Western culture practically for all practical purposes. Okay. But here you have lots of freedom, and that's why I loved it. If you go up into, this is China right here. If you go up into here and you get into, this is Bangladesh right in here, that's Bangladesh. It'd be the same thing, actually. So here's a system.
By the way, Joe, real quick, it was the same way during the war, because I was over there and they love having their pictures taken, even though it was all torn up from the war and everything.
Really? Okay. Back to this one for a second. Vietnam, they love, the United States is their biggest buddy, okay? Their biggest enemy is China, and they are overt about that, okay? No question that they don't like China. And they're both communists. They're a capitalistic communist country, and this is a communist country, but they're overruling, whereas here it's more of a democracy, but it's still a communist country. Myanmar is an absolutely disaster right now. It's under military rule. Myanmar, this area here, has 130 different identities of people. Like, you know, we have people from the south and from the north. They have about 130 of those with 100 different languages. The military is just killing people like crazy. And right in here, going up into Bangladesh, there's a Muslim community called the Rohingyas, and they're just killing them right off because they don't like them. It's awful. So that's my little discussion on that. Okay, so I came here, and this is what appealed to me right here. That kid right there. This doesn't appeal to me at all. Okay. He's a plumber, you know, these are filters, and this is whatever those are. That's what appealed to me. So I figured, okay, now I'm on a burst mode, you know, I go bang, 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 bang. Okay. So I'm going through here, and now they're laughing, they're talking among themselves, and they know I'm taking a picture. And so she's looking at me, and he's looking down. And this is my subject. This is what I really wanted, was him. Okay, and I'm working on him, and I got what I wanted. Okay, I got him with that sucker in his mouth. Okay, that's what I wanted. And this is another one here where I don't know what this was, an arcade or something like that. And the mother was here. I'm assuming that's the mother was here, and there's a little boy. And I knew I love this. So I figured, how am I going to do that? And I can't zoom in, or I have to get so close to get that in. So what I did was I start warming my way in. And now, see, notice how she forgot about me already? Okay. They do that real quick. So I'm warming my way in. And now I get down really, really low right here, shooting up, and I get those orbs in the background. I'm using an f4, 92 millimeters, and I get in those orbs. You see that a lot in the current movies and TV. And that's what I did. And I took a couple different shots to see how I liked the orbs, and because they were constantly changing colors, and that's what I wanted. And that's what I got.
Yeah. Comment, Joe?
What? Yeah.
Yeah. Comment. Your approach reminds me of the presentation that videographer Steve Miller did for us a couple of years ago. And the only thing I really remember from his presentation, but it stuck with me, is that when he looks at a scene just like you, he knows there's a photograph there, but he has to find it. He has to work for it, and he referred to it as the trigger. The trigger is, the notification of your brain saying, hey, there's a picture there somewhere. And then as Joe works the scene here, he gets in and figures out what is really important to him about that scene and ends up working his way toward that as being the focus of the picture.
Okay. So here's an alleyway, and I fell in love with this alleyway. I mean, I just love this thing, okay? Except there's no people in it. And by the way, that when I go through, like for instance, when I'm going through like a Myanmar or whatever, if I don't see a picture in a shot like this, I give it a 1. Unless there's a person in it, I just move on, okay? I just do, okay? There's nobody here. And I'm saying, okay, well, maybe I'll take some shot. Oh, and here comes a dog. Okay, well, maybe someone's gonna come around. And I'm now there's another dog comes in. And I said, okay, I'm wasting too much time. I'll come back to this. So I go and I take a picture of this guy for whatever reason, because I'm bored. I'm waiting to go back to the other place. And then I come back and, oh, when I did, the door's open and this guy's in front. Okay, so I don't want him in front. And then the lady is in here, okay? And I brightened her up. This is kind of a thing that I wanted. And I wanted did this in color. This is in post. This is color, and that's black and white. Now, I got to ask you a question. I'm partial to black and white myself. Okay, I find the color very distracting on that image myself. So I found that. So then I figured, okay, well, if I'm good at that, what else can I get? And that doesn't work. That doesn't work. No, I got too many overlaps in here. I don't like that. So then I turned around, and this is on the other end of the alley. I kind of like that. That was cool. I like that. So I took a picture of that, come back, and the darn door is closed again. So then they open the door. So then there's a boy there. Okay. And then he gets down low. They're always, they squat down. That's their normal mode of operation in terms of when they're eating or something, they're squatting, and he's squatting down, I'm sure. And that's what I took that picture, and I was happy with it. And now I do have a crooked, I see it needs to be straightened a little bit. But that's kind of a thing where I'm taking a lot of patience and working on that doorway is what I was working on, and waiting for a subject to come in that would complete my my composition. And that's what I do. So I'm going to put this on grid view for a minute, and I'm going to talk briefly about a train station, and that'll be and how I work a train station. Okay. So this is in Myanmar. Yangon is the capital, and this is a train tracks that they have in different stops. Okay, so I took a picture of that, and then this is where you buy a ticket and they stamp them. Rubber stamps in every country in the world has rubber stamps. Okay, so get in your tickets, and by the way, this looks like I'm telling a story. I don't do storytelling kind of photography. I'm not looking to put a book together that has a story. I'm looking for images that really appeal to me, not to tell a story. And this is the train, one of the trains at the train station. And all the subsequent pictures you're going to see are all taken in this particular train station. Can I get rid of this? No, never mind. One more. Okay. So here's one. I do have some harsh lights on them, but I don't have any option other than that. Okay. And I got that shot because I had him and those 5 guys looking at him. And this was like a grab shot. These are street photography, quick grab shots like this one here. Okay. I love this because you got the separation, they probably don't know each other, and don't, heaven forbid, get close and talk to them, and went to black and white. Now, sometimes color gets in the way for me. So I have it in black and white. So then I come out and on the side of the tracks, I think, can I do something with this? Nah, I can't do anything with that shot. That's not going to work for me anyways. I couldn't see that. I had too many harsh lights around in here. This would have been my subject, but I had 3 here and I didn't think I could get them. So, but this lady right here, I think is her. No, it's the wrong one. Okay. She's looking at me, and that's just about the only look that I ever had. Like, what are you doing? And she didn't, then she went right back to what she was doing, okay? She didn't, but that's, but what drew me was the baby. And you see all this on their face? That is a paste that they say is stopped the sunburn, but from other people that tell me that used to be, but now it's more of it's more of a decoration. I know I was in this place, I think it was with Edmund, yes, and we both had our faces painted like that. And we actually, for that, they were young kids. We wanted to give them, you know, like 50 cents or something. They wouldn't take any money. And they thought this is, so we did that. But this is what I wanted to get. I wanted to get that baby, okay? And I did. So I got these guys. Here I got a couple. Now I'm in the train and I'm photographing people in the train, okay? And they know I'm there because obviously I'm an American and I'm tall. And so I'm photographing in the train. And the light is just spectacular in this train. And I love it, love it, love it. And that's what I'm doing. Interesting. No smoking, no trash, no kissing. How about that? In the train station.
Hey, Joe, got a question for you.
Yeah.
When you are in the train shooting, are you just shooting from the camera at your hip or sitting down, or you actually have the camera up to your eye or holding it up and looking at the screen?
I am every one of these shots, I have the camera to my eye. I do not do the serendipitous, you know, trying to hide and put the camera down and flip the screen up in the back. I don't do that. I just put it up, and if they yell at me, I stop. Okay. And
Okay.
getting
Okay.
these.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So I'm getting these shots. Now, I have to tell you, I have about 4 train stations that I was in. Steve McCurry was in a session one time, and it was a workshop, and I was there. And I said, Steve, how come you never take a picture of somebody in sunlight? He said, I never take a picture of somebody with full sunlight. I move into a train station, to a library, somewhere inside so I can have muted light. And I've followed that along for a long time. So here, my subject are these folks, and then this guy walking through. I thought that was pretty cool. And so this is really fascinating here, and this I may end up with this on this note here. This is the train tracks, some of the train tracks, and there's all these people down here. So, and these people are here, and all these vegetables and stuff are around. What's going on? Look at the train tracks right here, okay? And all of this market is open right over the train tracks. Well, what happens? The train comes through. Everybody moves out of the way. They leave their stuff here because they know he's not going to smash them. And he comes through. And I mean, you're really, really close. And I was photographing here. You can see I'm sort of leaning over a little bit. And this lady, she grabbed hold of my arm and she pulled me back. So she thought I was going to get run over by the train. And this wasn't the lady. But I knew when I saw that lady, that would be someone I wanted to photograph. So now here comes another train coming down, running over the groceries. I just found that fascinating. Okay. So I wanted to get a shot of the whole thing. So there's a porch up here. These are, you can see where there's some second floors over in here. So I went and I got the attention of somebody and I said, can I come up, use my fingers like this? Can I come up? And they said, sure. I went up. And I now had a higher vantage point to get all these people in, to get shots like this and this and this. This is the market that they have, and the train goes through the market. And this all happened within maybe an hour when I was there. And on this one here now, what was my focus point? And what was my, why did I look at this image and say, do I want to take this picture? What's the focus? And the focus is the whole thing. To me, it was anyways, okay? And I don't have a point that I wanted to isolate. So I didn't isolate it. So, and then the train station, I'm taking some pictures of people in the train station, and because I just love doing this kind of stuff. And this is part, there's another part to this market, and this is all trash in here. This is just garbage, and it's real squishy when you walk on it. And so if you do and you're cutting fish and you're selling it in the market, okay, this is the table, but every now and then you got to get cleaned up. So you wash up, and then you go to the ticket counter to buy a ticket. So here, my subject is this, but I wanted to get all this in with all the narrative and the rules and regulations of the train. So this is the conductor or the engineer. He welcomed me, and I don't know what he's throwing up in there. And now I have people hanging out of the train. I'm photographing them, and now the train has left, and now there's one lone guy walking on the tracks, and there I am. And I got another 500 pictures to show, but I don't think I'm going to get through it tonight. So that is how I approach. Can I just take a minute and go through a monastery a little bit? Okay.
Oh, yes, yeah, that'd be good.
Just give me 5 minutes, okay? So here, there's a bunch of monks, and this is in a monastery. And so I want to photograph this, but I don't know how I'm going to isolate. So I get in closer and I zoom in and I pick a person, and this kid none of these appeal to me, okay? And I like that kid there smiling. And I'm searching around for someone that I think, this is what I got, a devious looking kid. So I got him. Okay, this is my subject. This is what I'm working for. And how I then isolated it on him. I'm in an F4, throwing everything out of focus. And I probably have a radio filter on there too to darken the edges. Okay. But this guy now, it's come time for lunchtime, and he's out there cooking. So I go out into the kitchen, and you know, it's in a monastery. I'm just walking around and introduce myself to the what do you call it, the headmaster. And he says, sure, you can take the photographs. And I did. He actually spoke English. So I'm looking at that, and I love steam, but boy, I hate this. Don't you hate that? And I wanted to get the fire in there, and that doesn't work. That doesn't work. It's not going to work that way. So I then have to revert back to my horizontal, because I can get rid of all that crap on the top, and I can get a little bit higher and shooting down a little bit on the guy, which gives me visibility into the bucket. Okay. And I got the fire, and I'm at probably 55 millimeters. I probably should have went wider so I can get more of the fire, but I didn't do that. So now I turn into black and white, and now I'm trying to get it just at the right spot where he's dumping it in, or right before he dumps it in. But I wanted that steam, and I needed to have a shutter speed of like 1/125th of a second. And so now they're doing the soup, and this was what I wanted, was this, so you could see the soup. And now these are the kids where they're getting their lunch. Okay, and I don't like any of these. Now they're washing up, but I do like that. Okay, I got that. This is I want to move forward here for quickly. Okay, so they're eating, and I don't like any of these. So I get up real high. I got a chair, and I stood on a chair, and I shot down on them. Okay, because I thought that was cool. So I did that, color in black and white, and then the kids are eating. So I'm doing this. Now they're washing their dishes. Got this. And now they're into class, and I'm doing this. Now this one has a lot of blown out highlights. So I'm doing an HDR, and that's what I got. I got an HDR. I combined those images to that one, this one. I did two. Did this one and this one, combined them, and I got that. Okay. because I wanted to have something in here. If it was just blown out like that, that would have just really drove me nuts forever. But I wanted that shot. Okay. So now we're doing a couple more little HDRs. This is the headmaster guy, and there's nothing here of any consequence. But this guy here, I wanted to get him because he had a really good gesture on his face, and highlighted him. This is one interesting to read. This is what they had. It's a negative language. This is they're speaking Burmese. I think that's the name language. I'm not sure. They're Muslim, they're Buddhist, but everything is in English. I'm just going to give one parting comment here, is that when we were done, we spent a good day and a half or so in this place. And we went to meet with the headmaster, and we wanted to give him a donation. Okay. And we were thinking of a substantial, not $5. Okay. We were thinking of something substantial, and there were 4 of us, and we agreed to do that. And he said, you know, I don't want any money. We don't need any money. We have all the material things we need. What I would like to ask you to do is go back to the United States and send a teacher over here. We need our country in Myanmar. We will not survive if we don't learn English language, and we don't know the English language. The general people don't know the English language. We're trying, like you can see here. He says, please go get a Peace Corps volunteer or someone like that and send them over. So that, I mean, I can go on and on, but
Joe,
yes.
you say you don't tell a story. Well, every one of your pictures told a story.
I know, and that's because you're looking at them. I'm going through there in a way because that's how I've photographed that, how I work my way into a scene, and that in essence tells a story. But if you look at my website, I don't do that in the story fashion. You'll just see pictures of this or that or this or
Well,
that.
then the viewer writes their own story. I like to write stories when I look at a picture
Okay.
and
Okay.
know nothing about it. I sort of mentally write my own story. And a good photograph will help you do that. And yours are just beyond wonderful.
Well, thank you very much, Diane. I appreciate that.
Hey, Joe, Rich Scar, do you go back when you're doing editing or looking at your pictures and you knew what you were looking for? Do you go back through a number of these photos and begin to see different things in the photos, and then you crop for that, which may be?
Yes, I do that. I do that a lot because, you know, like, let's say like here when I'm doing, I may say, oh, I need to if I just isolated this right here, wouldn't that be a cool shot? You know, I do that. That's what you mean, like that?
Yeah, it is exactly. Yeah, I find that it's a little embarrassing to do that sometimes. You think, gee, I wish I could have seen that piece of it and I shot that directly. But yeah, at least you get 2 or 3 pictures out of one that are outstanding. This is a great example.
And actually, that brings up a point. I'm a firm believer of shooting loose. If I were to take this shot, and let's say that I was taking this shot right here, I would not have taken the shot right there. I would have taken the shot like this.
Yeah.
I would have shot loose to give me some wiggle room in case I wanted to straighten this out, because you know what's going to happen when I straighten it out, okay? It's going to cut off the corners and stuff. So I'm a firm believer of shooting loose.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
Hey, Joe, just one last comment. When I've traveled, and I've not done it like you as a photographer, I actually shot a lot of corporate videos in Asia. What I found is a little simple thing when you're there was just touching your chest, touching your heart, and before you take a picture, whatever, get somebody feeling more comfortable. It's an unusual kind of thing, but it's like you're kind of it's an act of humility. But I found that people then respond. The second other quick thing I found is when I had an interpreter for me, because it was a corporate person, if I got the person talking to the interpreter in his or her own language, just talking, and I'd kind of indicate what I wanted him to ask or what, it'd start to get animated in their visuals too, but anyway, any cheats, things I can do, I do.
Interesting. That is really interesting to do
I
that.
found that touching, by the way, that kind of hard humility thing worked well for me in Saudi Arabia, the Middle East as well. People get a little more comfortable with this and see that you're just trying to do something kindly rather than something that's a little bit intimidating.
I'm just going to go up to a couple of shots here. This little girl, she was an orphan and she never smiled. You can see the kids playing behind her. I just wanted to give her a hug. I just wanted to do that. She was adorable. But the guy smoking, and I got backlight so I can see the smoke. And now I'm shooting like crazy to try and get the smoke pattern that I might like. And that's one that I found that I did it. And I got that rim light on it. And that's where we're working with the backlighting on these images. And here we got this kid. This didn't work out. It wasn't, well, that one I like. But this is where we had a window and the guy knew that the light would be coming through that window. And then we photographed that boy in that window and that light to get that right behind him. And I just wanted to show you those images. Dennis,
Wow.
I am done.
Very good, Joe. Thanks. I mean, the word I could think of is authentic. Those images are authentic and they're beautiful. So thank you very much. Let's entertain some questions. Other folks have comments or questions?
Joe, I have a question about the shots that you did, the zoom.
Yes.
Did you find any difference in the photographs you took as you were zooming in as opposed to zooming out?
Well, you know, I was anticipating that question. I was hoping I wouldn't get it because I really don't know. I don't, Mike, I go both ways and I really can't, I don't know if I ever remember the difference, but generally I'm zooming in, I think, generally.
Okay, forget I asked, okay?
Okay, that's okay, Mike.
Joe, what was your biggest misadventure?
We were in the Farrell Islands and we were going, this was Edmund and I. Edmund, are you here tonight? He probably is. Maybe he's probably seen this stuff.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. We wanted to go to a top of this hill that was very, very high, and there was a brand new paved road going around this mountain area. And we got about 3/4 of the way up and it turned into a sheet of ice. There was no guardrail and there was about like a 10-mile, I'm being facetious, fall off, okay? And I was absolutely scared out of my wits on this thing. And I knew if I stopped, I would never be able to get going again. So I had to keep moving. And I was so scared. And it was a one-laner. And if there was a car coming down, I don't know what I would have done. But that was probably the scariest thing I've ever had.
You made it.
I made it.
Other questions or comments? Well, folks, how about if you unmute yourself and as we like to do. And let's thank Joe for an excellent presentation with a nice round of applause.
Super,
Thank
super,
you.
Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you,
Joe.
Very nice.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
Sorry, I tuned in a little late. That was fabulous.
Well,
Okay,
thank you.
well, luckily we recorded the program, and as always, I'll send out an email tomorrow as a follow-up and include the link to the recording, and it will be available on our YouTube channel indefinitely.
Thanks,
Any,
Dennis.
Parting comments?
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Super.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye now.
Yeah.
Thank-
Okay, thanks, guys, and good night.
Good
Good
night.
night, everybody.
Night.
Night.